Hello, I am Dr. Anthony Ahn of Pepperdine University, and I am joined by Dr. Kelty Logan of University of Colorado Boulder. Every year, 5 papers are singled out for awards at the annual American Academy of Advertising Conference. This year, Kelty and I will be interviewing the authors who produced these awards-winning papers. Today, we'll be talking about the paper that received the Best Conference Paper Award titled, "We Are All in This Together, Brand Opportunism in COVID-19, Cost-Related Marketing and the Moderating Role of Consumer Skepticism." I'm happy to welcome Dr. Jing Yang and Dr. Juan Mundel, the 2 authors of this paper. Jing and Juan, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. Is this paper part of a larger research stream that you have been working on, or does it represent a departure, a new area of research for you guys?
So the concept for the paper is actually new, but it reflects part of our ongoing research agenda. In the past, we have used this theory that advertising reflects changes in society, and that based on changes that society is experiencing at the time, advertisers need to respond timely to how consumers are being confronted with everyday issues. So in that regard, we were continuing on with our research agenda. However, as you know, the pandemic prompted all of us to have to look at marketing in a different ways. So in this case, we adapted this line of research about how advertising reflects to changes in society to look at how consumers were evaluating brand messages as a result of pandemic conditions.
Sort of following that up, what inspired the questions that you ask in this research?
So that's a really interesting question. And I think that our viewers are going to find my answer also a little bit interesting as well. As a consumer, as you know, we were all stuck at home during the lockdowns, and we all had to spend a lot of time working and watching TV and getting used to this new reality that we had. And for the longest time, advertisements that were on streaming platforms were still continuing to advertise everyday activities that we could no longer do as the result of the stay-at-home mandates. However, very quickly, brands started creating these ads that were all the same, right? They all had very somber music. All of a sudden, they were showing all the empty streets. And they all had these messages of, we're all in this together now that everything has changed. And as a consumer, I started feeling exploited, right? Because I felt that all of a sudden these brands had gone missing for the last 2 months while we were all trying to figure out how to find food, how to find hygienic products. All of a sudden we're trying to advertise to us without any sort of support on how they were going to help us get through the pandemic. It was just, we're advertising, we're here, don't forget about us. So we were having a conversation with Jing, and I mentioned to her that it felt very opportunistic, right? It felt like people were taking advantage of the timing of the announcement. And because we were all locked inside, to just reinforce a message that they were there for us one way or another, but there was no support behind their claims. So we started looking at this concept of brand opportunism, and it's a concept that has been used in other streams of research, but has not been paid attention to yet in advertising. So we did some initial research, and we created our own scale for measuring brand responses to consumer opportunism, and we went from there. But we are now in the process of growing this stream of research to validate this new scale that we created.
A little different angle. Does this paper employ familiar research methods, or have you employed a really new, innovative research method to investigate your research questions?
The method we adopted are very traditional. We adopted online experiment between subjects. So we were just dividing participants to see different types of stimuli from different brands to measure the perceived brand social issue feed, which in the context is the COVID. So it was very traditional study.
Thank you. All right. Then next question is, In your opinion, what is the most interesting or exciting findings from your study overall?
Just carry on what Juan mentioned about the new concept, brand opportunism. I think being able to found different brands when having high or low brand social issue feed will lead to different consumer responses to brand opportunism is one exciting finding. We find that the brand that has high social issue feed, which is like they are closely related to COVID, that they are providing tangible help, their image is concurrent with the issue, those brands are being perceived as less opportunism versus the low feed will result in high opportunism. And we also found for people who are in high ad skepticism, they would also spot this kind of opportunism behavior more sensitively as compared to people who are less skeptical of advertising in general. So that's the very exciting finding that we were able to prove our discussion at a random time during the COVID. It was very exciting.
One last question is, are there implications from your research that would benefit advertising?
Yeah, so we think that this particular study can actually help advertisers connect better with digital audiences. So during the pandemic, we saw that brands were able to continue developing relationships with consumers thanks to the messages that they were posting on social media about this feeling of belonging and experiencing the difficulties together. However, what we found was that consumers are not likely to just trust these social issue claims when there's not an apparent connection between what the brand is saying and what the brand does. So referring to what Jing was describing as high and low social issue fit, what we found was that brands that were not carrying essential products that were advertising with these messages, such as we're all in this together, now that everything has changed, in those cases, consumers perceive those postings and those social media advertisements as being opportunistic, which actually led into negative evaluations for the brands and resulted in lesser purchase intentions and lesser intentions as well to engage with the advertisements on social media. However, when the brand actually did not carry essential products, then consumers again felt it opportunistic, but when the brand actually had something to do in terms of helping the consumer ride through these changes of the pandemic, it actually, opportunism went down and ad attitudes and intentions to purchase went up. So we really want to caution practitioners about the messages that they put out there on social media, to make sure that there is an apparent connection, or that they're really telling consumers what are they doing when there's a social issue, as it could be Black Lives Matter or the Stop Asian Hate movement. You can't just put out a social issue claim. You need to show how your brand is helping solve these issues.
I do have a question, which I didn't see addressed, which is there were a couple of brands like Burger King, which were supplying hamburgers to first responders. But their commercial was really very Burger King. It was, you could be a couch potato and be a patriot at the same time, something of that nature. Did you see consumers responding to that kind of message, a mixed message, if you will, where they were being true to their brand personality, but they were trying to be helpful? Did you see consumers recognizing that, or did it just confuse them?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. Definitely something we will look into in the future for mixed messages. I think it's different when you're posting a corporate social responsibility post on social media versus you're playing a TV commercial to remain the humor sense of your brand personality.
When you found out you guys were the recipients of the Best Conference Paper, what was your reaction?
Both Juan and I was super surprised because we were never expecting this. We know we have a high score in the evaluation, but we never expect this because every scholars presenting at AAA are top-notch scholars. They're all presenting valuable works. So we didn't expect us to be the fortunate, top paper, but we are very grateful for the award that the Academy given us. We were super exciting at the time when we heard that.
And after attending, both Jing and I did our PhD together at Michigan State, and for the longest time we've been attending AAA, and we all look into the scholars that win the top paper award with inspiration, and this is great that we were recognized and that we were able to celebrate all our accomplishments as researchers for this time.
Dr. Jing Yang and Dr. Juan Mundel, thank you so much for joining us today to talk about your fantastic paper. And of course, thanks to our viewers for joining us. See you next time.